So it's Kiyosha and I'm back with another book video. So today we're going to be talking about all the books I read in May and what I plan on reading in the month of June. So if you like these types of videos, please make sure you give them a thumbs up. Make sure you guys subscribe. Make sure you turn on that notification bell so you don't miss any more of these videos. And let's just get into today's video. Alright you guys, so you can tell from the title of the video and in the intro, I am doing all the books I read in May and what I'm going to be planning on reading in June. And I'm so excited because it seems I am out of my reading slump and I have done a lot of reading in the month of May. And aren't you guys glad I got this video out super early in the month? And last month I think I was just so discouraged I didn't want to do a wrap up of April because I only read 2 books and it was trash. But we have redeemed ourselves in May and hopefully I can keep this streak going and meet my goal sooner because I'm pretty much halfway there. So that's good, but it's also half of the year, so I'm right on track. But let's just start out with saying that I have read regular books like nonfiction, mysteries. Of course, they're all nonfiction, but like mystery, contemporary, some sci-fi or fantasy, if you want to call it, and also like some rom-coms and stuff. But I also have gotten into reading like graphic novels, mangas, because Jalen likes them, and I kind of like to keep up with what she likes and kind of be able to understand what it is that she's reading or not reading. So I found a couple adult ones that I think were good for me to read. So I will be going over those that I read as well. And then I have a couple in June that I would like to read or finish reading. Actually, I finished one today. So I've already finished my first book in June. So yeah, but we'll get into that. So let's start off with what I read in the month of May. So May recap, and I'm going to start with just like the regular nonfiction books and then we'll talk about the mangas after. So the first book I read in May was, of course, our book club book read of the month, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Y'all, this book is worth the hype. It's worth every little bit that it was talking about. I absolutely enjoyed it and everybody in the book club enjoyed it as well. So I definitely gave it 5 stars. Highly recommend. And then the next book I read was Fear No Evil by James Patterson. You guys know I follow the Alex Cross stories. I've been following him since his first book. And this is book number 29. And it did not disappoint at all. Read it in 2 days, super fast. And I'm already waiting on the next book. The only thing I hate about being so caught up with my authors is that I have nothing to read until they publish their next book. So I'm always waiting. But I do find pretty good artists in between. Authors in between, I mean. So yes, Fear No Evil was good. 5 stars. Chef's kiss. He never disappoint. And then I read a new to me author, Savvy Shelton Feels Good as Hell. This was also really good. It was a rom-com, enemies to lovers type sentiment. But they really weren't enemies, but kind of like that. Enemy to lover. It reminds me of the Brown Sisters. So if you like the Brown Sisters stories, those books, this remind me of it. And I gave it 5 stars. It was absolutely good. I loved it. And then the next book I read was Beast of Prey, which is a young adult fantasy. I think it's considered I think sci-fi is space and fantasy is like magic, right? So I want to say fantasy book. It was a chunker. It was a chunker. But when I say I did not realize that I was even reading a book that I think it was 496 pages. And I finished it in a couple of days because I just really wanted to know what happened next. And it was such interesting. It reminds me of Children of Blood and Bones. If you ever read Children of Blood and Bone, it sort of gives me that vibe. And so it's really good. And I think the sequel comes out this year as well. So I can't wait for that because I can't wait to continue the story. And then the last book I read was An Unwanted Guest, which is this book right here that I actually finished yesterday on May 31st. Today's June the 1st. So just made it in there under. I tried to get it in. I knew I was going to get another book in, so I read this one. It actually was very good. I gave it 5 stars. It was very suspenseful. It was like a murder mystery. I did not know who was killing people into the end of the story. And when I found out who was doing the killing and why, I was like, really? but it was still really, really good. It did drag on a little bit, but not too much, but it was still good. And it was only 290 pages, so it couldn't drag on too long. I mean, it's only 300 pages, so yeah. Let's get on to the graphic novels or whatever I read. So you guys already know I read a graphic novel called Graceling, which is actually based off of a actual fantasy book, and it's about these people that they call Grace, and they have like these magic powers. And it kind of reminds me of like Lord of the Rings or Willow or something like that. I gave it 4 stars. It was pretty good. I'm new to graphic novels. I mean, I've read some, but I haven't read many. And then I read Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me, which I gave 5 stars. I thought it was a really, really good book on how relationships work and how we always, because we're in love with somebody, we let them treat us a certain way. And that we have to learn to love ourselves and learn to let go and love the people who love us back. And I really liked how, even though this was a high school relationship, the way it was written, it was like more, it reminded me of people in college or adults trying to navigate somebody who doesn't treat them well, but you're in love with them and you're trying to make it work. And then you have to just realize one day it's not going to work. You just have to let it go. And then how they act after you dump them, even though they dumped you several times, you know, call you all kind of names. Yeah, so that was the next one. And then I read one that's called This One Summer. I gave it 2 stars. I think it was a little too young for me. I thought it was something else, and it was really more of a kid's book, so I didn't really like it. So I gave it 2 stars. And then I read another one that was also considered a young adult book, but it was called Cici's Journal, The Adventure of a Writer in Training. But it really wasn't about a writer in training. To me, it was more like a mystery, because she was always trying to solve the mystery of what other people were doing and actually really being nosy. But I gave it 5 stars because that, what do you call it? The graphics or the drawings, and there was absolutely stunning. And the story was okay. And I probably shouldn't have gave 5 stars, but I gave 5 stars anyway. I don't really too much rate anything bad unless I just really didn't like it. And then the last one I read was Almost American Girl, an illustrated memoir, and it's about this girl who moved from South Korea, I believe, to the United States. Well, she actually thought she was coming to the United States to visit her uncle in Alabama, Huntsville of Alabama, of all places. And why they would come to Alabama, I don't know, from Korea, talking about seeing some sights, baby, because ain't nothing to see in Huntsville. Or besides the Space Center, ain't really nothing else to see in Alabama at all. But I should know, I live in Alabama. But she came there, and then her mom ended up telling her that she was moving there, and she thought her life was over. And then, you know, she had bullies at school because she couldn't hardly speak English. And of course, she went to a school where they all speak English. And in Huntsville, Alabama, or Alabama in general, it's not really a diverse state. So you're going to get a lot of racism and discrimination. And so it just goes through her navigating, you know, trying to learn the language, trying to make friends, trying to figure out, you know, when to stand up for herself or when to do this. And then her mom eventually moves, I think, to Virginia. And in Virginia, because it was near Washington, D.C. or something like that, there was a lot of international people who went to the school that she went to. So she saw people from like India and Korea and Africa, and they all spoke different language, and they was all trying to learn English, and she fit in much better. So I really liked how the story evolved of her from her teenage years of having a hard time and all the way up until her adult years to after she graduated college. I thought it was a really, really good story about, you know, the things you have to deal with when you're an outsider, or, you know, you're not what they consider the norm. And so she had to deal with a lot of bullying and racism, like I said, and discrimination because she was a foreigner. And I thought it was a really good book. I gave it 5 stars, or graphic novel, or whatever. So those are all of the books I read in May. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That was 10, but you have to mind you, these graphic novels or these, graphic novel mangas, I take one day to read those. So in actuality, I read 5 books in the month of May, which is still good in between the graphic novels, right? So I think I did really, really good. So that's what I read in the month of May. So what do I plan on reading in the month of June? Let's get into it, y'all. Let's get into it. So I'm going to start with the 2 graphic novels, or, you know, whatever you want to call them. So the first graphic novel is called Odessa, and it's basically a post-apocalyptic graphic novel. It's 300 pages. I actually read it in one day. And it has a sequel, but I don't know if a sequel is going to come out because it ends like it's going to be a sequel. When I looked it up, The author doesn't seem he's working on a sequel, so I'm kind of pissed because I want to know what happened next now. You know, you don't have me go through this whole story, 300 pages, and I can't figure out what happened next, okay? Sick of folks writing stuff and don't finish their stories. Y'all already know. So basically, it's a post-apocalyptic world where the world had a huge earthquake that lasted like a week or days or something, and the world is literally devastated. And so everybody is basically fighting for their lives, trying to scrounge their stuff. They're back to trading. Money is no good. And so it talks about this young girl named Virginia and her two brothers, Harry, I forgot the other brother's name, Harry and something. The other brother's name is, I don't know what the other brother's name is. I know one of them is Harry and I can't remember the other one's name. And their father. And so basically their mom left 8 years ago when all of this went down. I guess she couldn't deal. I don't know what the story was. And so on her 17th birthday, her mom sent her a package with a letter and a necklace and a photo, but they all thought their mom was dead because they hadn't heard from her in 8 years. And so it sparks in her a need to know what happened to her mother and why her mother left. And so she goes on this journey of finding her mother, but her brothers sneak and come along with her, and it's a whole to-do, okay? It's a whole to-do. They have people chasing them. There's these people, but they have been transformed because when the earthquakes happen, stuff is coming out of the earth and is causing like mutations and all this kind of stuff. And so when humans eat certain stuff that's come up out of this, I guess wherever it's coming from after the earthquake, if they eat it, it kind of changes them, and it's sort of like a zombie, but it's not really a zombie because they can still talk and they can think, but they're really savage. So it's really, really interesting. It was actually a really good story, and I would like to know what happens next, but I don't know if I will. But yes, it was called Odessa. So that was the first book I finished in the month of June because I finished that today. And then the next book I'm going to read is called A Map to the Sun, which is another graphic novel, and I'll just read you the synopsis. Even though they've only been friends since the beginning of summer, they've been inseparable, but the most important friendship in Ren's life is cut short when Luna suddenly moves back to Oahu and stops answering Ren's messages. Years go by and then Luna returns to LA acting like nothing happened. She's ready to step back into their friendship, but Ren isn't. Ren would rather pretend Laura never came back, except now they're on the same girls basketball team and they still have one very important thing in common. They want to play and they want to win. So that's what this one's about. And the next books are in no particular order, but I will talk about the two books that I carried over from last month that I didn't finish. So the two books that I didn't finish off of the TBR in May was Blood Like Magic, which I plan on reading second. And then the next book I'm going to read this month after the one I just read is, I think I was saying this person's name wrong. I think it's Yinka. Maybe I was saying it wrong. Where's Your Husband? This is the next book I'm about to read. And I went over the synopsis in the last video, so make sure you guys look at May's TBR and you'll get the synopsis for that. And then I have 3 more books that I want to read besides those. So the next book is called The Night Circus, which I thought I had read already, but I think it was another book that had circus in it. I don't think it was The Night Circus. So this is our May book club. No, June. I keep getting it June. June book club book of the month is called The Night Circus. And the circus arrives without warning. No announcement precedes it. No paper notices plastered on the lamppost and billboard. It is simply there when yesterday it was not. Within the nocturnal black and white striped tents awaits an utterly unique experience, a feast for the senses where one can get lost in a maze of clouds, meander through a lush garden made of ice, stare in wonderment at the tattoo contortionist, folds herself into a small box, and become deliciously tipsy from the scents of caramel and cinnamon that wave through the air. Welcome to Le Circus des Rêves. I think that's what it says. Y'all don't quote me. Beyond the smoke and mirrors, however, a fierce competition is underway. A contest between two young illusionists, Celia and Mariko, who have been trained since childhood to compete in a game to which they have been irrevocably bound by their masters. Unbeknownst to the players, this is a game in which only one can be left standing, and the circus is but the stage for a remarkable battle of imagination and will. As the circus travels around the world, the feast of magic gains fantastical new heights with every stop. The game is well underway in the lives of all those involved. The circus owner, the contortionist, the mystical fortune teller and a pair of red-headed twins born backstage among it, are swept up in a wake of spells and charms. But when Celia discovers that Mariko is her adversary, they begin to think of a game not as a competition, but as a wonderful collaboration. With no knowledge of how the game must end, they endlessly tumble headfirst into love. A desperate, passionate, and magical love that makes the lights flicker and the room grow warm whenever they so much as brush hands. Their masters will pull the strings, however, and this unforeseen occurrence forces them to intervene with dangerous consequences, leaving the lives of everyone from the performers to the patrons hanging in the balance. Both playful and seductive Night Circus. Alright, that sounds interesting. I don't know why I thought this was the one about the sister who was kidnapped. Isn't there another one, the circus, called about the sister who was kidnapped? It's called Circus something too. But anyway, that's with the Night Circus. That's our book club book of the month. And then the next book I'm reading is called Ocean Prey by John Sandford. This is another character that I followed through several books. I don't even know how many. It's a Lucas Davenport book. I really love Lucas Davenport stories. They're really good. So this one says an off-duty Coast Guardsman is fishing with his family when he calls in some suspicious behavior from a nearby boat. It is a snazzy craft, slick and outfitted with an extra horsepower and zipping along until it slows to pick up a surface diver. A diver who was apparently alone without his own boat in the middle of the ocean. None of it makes sense unless there's something hunky going on, and his hunch is proved right when all three guardsmen who come out to investigate are shot and killed. Their federal officers murdered on the job, which means the case is in the FBI turf. When the FBI investigation stalls out, Lucas Davenport gets the call, and when his case turns lethal, Davenport will need to bring in every asset he can claim, including a detective with a fundamental criminal mind, Virgil Flowers. And y'all, this next book is a chunker. I didn't realize it, but as I went back and looked at the books that other books I read in this series, I've realized that every time she writes a new book, she ups the pages, okay? And they become thicker and thicker and thicker. I think the last book was like 650 page. This is the new book. This book is 700 and... oh, it's not 7. It's 927 pages. So she went from 650 to 927 pages. And this is Robert Gilbreth. This is a Comrade Strike novel. You guys y'all know they've made a TV series out of this. In the first I think the first book was The Cuckoo's Calling. And so this is The Troubled Blood. And this is the latest book, and I think the next one comes out sometime at the end of this year. And so private detective Comrade Strike is visiting his family in Cornwall when he is approached by a woman asking for help finding her mother, Margaret, who went missing under mysterious circumstances in 1974. Strike has never tackled a cold case before, let alone one 40 years old, but despite the slim chance of success, he is intrigued and takes it on, adding to the long list of cases that he and his partner in the agency, Robin, are currently working on. And Robin herself is also juggling a messy divorce and unwanted male attention, as well as battling her own feelings about Strike. As Strike and Robin investigate Margaret's disappearance, they come up against a fiendishly complex case which leads that include tarot cards, a psychopathic serial killer, and witness who cannot all be trusted. And they learn that even cases 40 years old can prove to be deadly. So that is the last book I want to read that month. So not an unreasonable stack, because I clearly read 5 books this month. And so hopefully I can read 5 books. I mean, I read 5 books last month, so hopefully I can read 5 books this month. So this is my stack. Oh! I'm always dropping some. So this is my stack for the month. And I'll probably read them in something like this order. Well, actually, I'll read this one and this one. And then I have to read the Night Circus, because our book club is always... well, maybe it's the 4th because of Father's Day. It might be the 4th. I need to look what day it is. But anyway, this is my stack for the month of June. So I hope you guys enjoyed the videos. Please let me know in the comments below, what are you guys reading? Make some suggestions for some books you guys want me to read. I know you guys wanted me to start something where we could have like a little book club together with all of you guys who like to watch my book club. I mean, my book videos. And so just let me know some suggestions below, and maybe we can do it like a little book club thing, like we read a book and then have a live or something, or do something, or chat. I got a whole darn Facebook group that I don't even use, so maybe we can do it on the Facebook, and I can go out and put a poll every month and we can read a book together. So let me know if you guys would like to do that, and I will revive that darn Facebook group that I clearly do not use and need to use. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Make sure you guys subscribe. Make sure you turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any more videos from me, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.